Why are they suddenly everywhere? In your thoughts, your dreams, even your du'as, when you haven't spoken in months. You try to ignore it, but a reel shows up, a memory stings, and your heart whispers, is this from Allah? Or just me clinging to a feeling that's no longer mine? Why are they suddenly everywhere? In your thoughts, your dreams, even your du'as, when you haven't spoken in months. You try to ignore it, but a reel shows up, a memory stings, and your heart whispers, is this from Allah? Or just me clinging to a feeling that's no longer mine? You weren't thinking about them yesterday. No messages, no calls, no signs, but now they're back. Not in reality, but in your heart. And somehow that's worse, because this time it's quiet. There's no fight, no closure, just your chest tightening for reasons you can't explain. You make wudu. You open the Quran. You press your forehead to the ground and say, Ya Allah, what is this? Is this a sign? Or is this me? You look for meaning in the silence. You rewind every moment. How you felt safe with them. How your soul softened when they spoke about Deen. How you never had to beg for attention. Because in their presence you felt seen, and not just looked at. And maybe that's what's haunting you now. Not their name, but the version of yourself that existed around them. The peaceful you. The present you. The one who didn't overthink, didn't chase, didn't fear. You weren't just in love with them. You were in love with who you became in their presence. And now you don't know if you're missing them, or the peace you thought they brought. And that's the part that tears you quietly. Because you want to move on. You do. But your heart, it's loyal in ways your mind can't keep up with. It keeps asking, what if this is Allah trying to tell me something? What if this pull is a divine nudge? But deep down, a softer voice replies. Or maybe it's just your heart replaying comfort it hasn't found again. And that is where the battle begins. Because we've been told to look for signs, to listen to the soul, to follow peace. But what do you do when your heart feels everything except peace? What if this ache isn't from Allah, but from a version of yourself that still hasn't healed? What if your longing is just a scar reacting to silence, not a sign calling you back? You start overthinking again. What if I blocked a blessing? What if Allah actually sent them? And now every video you scroll past, every quote about love and timing, it pulls you back into that space. Not because you're weak, but because you were sincere. You loved them in a way that wasn't loud. It was quiet, halal, hidden in du'as. You didn't chase. You prayed. You didn't beg. You believed. But now you wonder, was that belief real? Or just hope dressed up in religious language? Because when it ended, it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like something sacred got interrupted. Like a story that was building, suddenly collapsed without warning. And now you're left with pages that never got written. So you do what we all do. You look for clues. You rewatch old moments. You analyze every maybe, every almost, every nearly. You want closure, but you also want resurrection. You want to move on, but you also want Allah to bring it back, if it was ever yours. And here's the hardest part. Your heart is tired. Not just tired of missing them, but tired of not knowing what to do with the pieces they left behind. Because how do you grieve something that didn't die, but just disappeared? How do you stop thinking about someone who didn't hurt you, but also didn't stay? You try to label it. Maybe it was a test. Maybe it was a lesson. Maybe it was a door Allah gently closed before it could hurt you deeper. But every time you pray, their name hovers on your tongue. You pause. You hesitate. You wonder, should I still make du'a for them? Or is that me refusing to let go? You ask Allah for guidance, for clarity, for signs. And sometimes the silence feels like the cruelest answer. But other times, feels like mercy. Because if Allah is not bringing them back, maybe it's because He's bringing you back. To yourself. To your own heart. To your own healing. To the version of you that doesn't have to wait to be loved. To feel worthy, but still. There's that ache. That ache no one sees. You smile around people. You work. You laugh. You tell yourself, I'm over it. It's done. But at night, you sit with your phone in hand, scrolling, waiting, as if a text might arrive from a number that's been silent for months. You don't want them back just for comfort. You want them back with clarity, with divine confirmation, with a sense that this time, it's written, not wished for. And you wonder, is it wrong to still care? Is it wrong to still feel their absence in rooms they never entered? No, it's not wrong. What you felt was real. Even if the outcome wasn't. Even if they never said goodbye. Even if they moved on like it meant nothing. You cared in a world that taught people to pretend. You prayed in a world that told you to chase. You stayed respectful in a time when games are glorified. That says everything about you. But now it's time to return. Not to them. Not to the what-ifs. But to the one who heard every du'a, every silent sob into your pillow, every whispered, Ya Allah, if they're not good for me, take them away gently. And maybe that's what this is. Not punishment, but gentleness. Not rejection, but redirection. Allah didn't give you less. He's just preparing you for more. More peace. More clarity. More love, that doesn't confuse you. More companionship, that doesn't leave you guessing. You see, when someone is truly meant for you, they come with a softness in your chest, not knots in your stomach. They bring you closer to your Lord, not further into your doubts. So maybe it wasn't that they were bad. Maybe they were just not yours. Maybe they were a chapter, not the book. A whisper, not the final call. And that's okay. Some people enter your life as prayers and leave as answers. You asked Allah to fix your heart, but maybe you didn't realize what that would take. Because healing doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it comes wrapped in silence, in letting go, in detaching from what once felt like home, but was only ever a temporary shelter. Maybe that's what this loneliness is. Not a punishment, but a purification. So your soul can finally breathe without begging. So your mind can finally rest without replaying old memories. So your heart can finally beat for the one who never left you. Do you remember those nights when you cried alone, and no one knew? When your chest felt like it would collapse from the weight of unspoken pain? Allah knew, and He was closer to you in those moments than anyone ever was in your happiest ones. Because while you were busy asking, why did they leave me? Allah was already sending what you truly needed. Not just love, but a love that leads you back to Him. Not just a relationship, but a connection rooted in peace, not confusion. Not just a person, but a purpose. You don't want someone who texts you when they're bored. You want someone who makes you raise your hands and say, Ya Allah, thank you for answering my du'a in ways I didn't even know I needed. And until that day comes, you wait. Not in misery but in surrender. Not in doubt but in certainty. Because Allah never removes something from your life, unless He intends to replace it with something better. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not in the way you imagined. But better, in His wisdom, not yours. And here's the truth most people don't tell you. Sometimes the person you're begging Allah for is the very person He's protecting you from. And the person you never saw coming is the one who will lead you to Jannah. So stop chasing signs in people who only bring you storms. Stop begging hearts that were never yours to begin with. Stop trying to resurrect what Allah already buried. Instead, sit in that quiet. Let your soul breathe. Let your heart recalibrate. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not unlovable. You are just being prepared for something greater, something written, something yours. You think this chapter is the end, that no one will ever love you like they did, that no one will understand you the way they did. But what if they were never meant to stay? What if their exit was the entrance of a version of you you've never met, but always needed to become? What if heartbreak wasn't meant to break you, but to break you open? To empty you of everyone you kept choosing above your own peace? To release the weight of people who didn't know how to love you right? To burn down the illusions you kept praying were real? And now, there's space. Space for the real love to find you. Space for your heart to align with the one who created it. Because when Allah loves you, He doesn't just protect your soul. He protects your heart too. And sometimes, protection comes in the form of rejection. Sometimes mercy looks like closed doors. Sometimes divine love feels like heartbreak. Because it's saving you from what you would have settled for had Allah not intervened. So take this moment, this quiet ache, this sacred pause, and turn it into prayer. Say, Ya Allah, if it's not for me, remove it gently. If it is for me, make it easy. But whatever you write, let it bring me closer to you. And if you meant it, if you truly meant it, then trust this silence. Trust this delay. Trust this solitude. Because you're not being forgotten. You're being refined. The next chapter of your life doesn't need another person to begin. It starts when you finally choose you. When you finally choose Allah. When you stop looking for pieces of your worth in people who dropped you. When you start finding wholeness in the one who never did. And one day, maybe sooner than you think, you'll look back at this moment, with tears in your eyes and a smile on your face, and you'll whisper, Ya Allah, now I understand. Because the heart that once broke asking for answers will become the heart that bows in gratitude for the wisdom behind the delay. You asked Allah to fix your heart, and He did. But not by giving you back what you lost, He fixed it by showing you that you never lost him. And that was always more than enough.